When we're starting out, running is supposed to be an all-inclusive sport that takes everyone who laces up their shoes and puts one foot in front of the other with open arms. It takes people so long to finally call themselves a runner, and when they do, they almost immediately encounter pushback from the group that they have been told is so open and takes everyone in. It is a shame because when we all start out, we are so full of fear and self-awareness with a heavy dash of self-loathing when we should be embracing ourselves for not only taking on this new endeavor, but also for doing it in spite of what our very loud inner voice and those quote-unquote expert voices are saying. Hello everyone. So, my name is Corey, and I am the creator of this documentary, But You Don't Look Like a Runner. I've been a runner for 10 years, started in April 2010, and I am 6'2", 250, I lift as much as I run, so when I'm at places for a decade now, I will, someone will ask me what I do, or I tell them that I'm a runner, and I always get that look or that judgment of, but you don't look like a runner. And I have been blessed with meeting so many friends through the running community that I've heard them say this same thing over and over. So when I started making films, I wanted to do something to cover this. So I truly hope you guys enjoy the interviews with the wonderful people that I did, and also we'll be doing a couple more running documentaries in the future. So thank you guys very much, and let's go ahead and get started.
You're a runner if you don't do any races. You're a runner if you only do virtual races. You're a runner if you are an elite running the world. You're a runner, you're like me, and you only get out on the weekends now. I am Katie. I am in the lovely state of Iowa, and it's starting to get cold, and I don't like that.
It doesn't make you, being fast, it doesn't make you a good runner. Everything else is involved. And my name is Adam Osman. I live in Farmington, Connecticut. And 53 years old.
I love the mental challenge. I do not always love the physical challenge, but when I am able to overcome the physical challenge, it's exhilarating in a way that other things aren't. Crossing the line of a marathon, even if I walk most of it, is just knowing that I just went 26.2 miles at one time. Therefore, I can probably also do this or also do that. My name is Candace, and I reside in the greater New York City area.
I'm going to be running Boston in the spring, so this is why I'm doing the training group, so I can help others and get my miles in. She goes, oh, how did you get into Boston? And I'm like, I qualified. My name is Danielle, and I reside in Salem, Oregon.
Out there, and it's just, you feel that groove. Once you get into a groove, and you just go, and you leave the world behind for the length of time you're out there. So my name is Scott Jacobson. Reside in Akron, Ohio.
A year after you started running, you ran an ultra.
Yes.
Damn, that is awesome. That is awesome.
So, Stacy, and I live in LaGrange, Kentucky.
But what I have experienced many times over and over, and even yesterday, in fact, was, you run? My name is Karen Vance, and I reside in Woodstock, Ontario, Canada.
But inwardly, I have told myself that many, many times. Of course, yes, my name is Becky. I am in the great state of Delaware.
When did you start running, and how long have you been a runner?
I always like to call it a newbie runner. Just a few years ago, I decided that I needed something for myself that was about feeling good and feeling better. And I took my first run, and it was like half of a mile, and I almost died, and it was great. I loved everything about it, and I almost died. So I'm a new runner, but the passion grew very quickly for me. I mean, I feel like I did that first run with a stroller and a baby, and I was sold. Also, that's why I almost died.
I started running in 2011. So there's an interesting story about me. I started running because 2011 I had I had a really, really bad time. I was a gambling addict. In 2008, I lost everything. So then after I went to a treatment program, I gained weight. After I stopped gambling, I gained weight. I was on medication, blood pressure, cholesterol. And then a friend of mine in 2011 said, you know what? Let's go run for 5K. I didn't even know anything about 5K, right?
I was never a distance runner. And the first time I lived in New York, which was, I moved here in January of 2011. And I was here for until like, I think August or September of 2012. And over the summer of 2011, Nora had texted me because neither of us were living in Ohio. Mm-hmm. And she said, hey, Canton, Ohio is doing their first marathon and the Hall of Fame marathon. And since we grew up in the next city over, she's like, it's in 2012 in the summer. So why don't we do it together? Because I already do these and I think you'd like it. And it would be an excuse for us to both come home and hang out. And I was like, girl, I don't run unless anyone's chasing me.
Okay, so I started running a little bit before I got pregnant with my son. So that would be 2006. And then ran for 5 months while I was pregnant until I couldn't see past my belly anymore. Then I had to switch to walking and going to the gym and whatnot. I had pretty bad postpartum depression after I had my son. And so I didn't get into running again until he was about a year old. And then I was like, okay, I need to do something. This baby weight's not coming off. And so, you know, and he was kind of a fussy child too. But the one way I could always get him to take a nap is if I pushed him in the jogging stroller. So I trained I decided I was going to train for a marathon. So I trained for a marathon and I pushed him in the jogging stroller for majority of my training runs, including one that was, I believe, 12 miles long.
Let's see. Well, the length of time that I've been running, about 15 years now. Started back running. I mean, I used to run when I was in the service. Obviously not anywhere near a marathon or anything like that, but got out of it for the longest time. Started back when I was maybe late 20s, early 30s. So 41 now.
Yeah.
So
actually, I started. So my 50K was in 2018. I started running in 2017. Yes. Sorry. So I started running in what?
So I had always, with a small badge of honor, I've always bragged about the fact my first race is going to be a full marathon. And it was. A year later, it was Kentucky Derby. But you're telling me a year after you started running, you ran an ultra?
Yes.
Damn, that is awesome.
I've been a runner for 10 years. I started shortly after my second child was born in 2009. So I actually began in 2010.
Started running around 2010. I know it's similar to you. So I recall running with a bunch of friends and my fraternal twin sister, and they were a lot faster than me. They just flew past me, but I was resilient and I wanted to finish. I remember clearly it was raining cats and dogs. I kept having to tie my right shoe. It was the worst mix of everything. I was just very disheartened, but I remember some kind gentleman saying, it's okay, stop, tie your shoe, you can do this. And then I thought, all right. And so I finished and we went out to breakfast. It was fabulous. But yes, I've been running for about a decade now. I've had some ups and downs, but I absolutely love the sport.
So what do you love about being a runner?
Gosh, that's a great one. I think running for me is it's freeing. It's that time where I'm out there and I'm pushing myself, more than what even doctors, I've had 2 knee surgeries, so there's a lot of skepticism about me running in general. And there's just something about clearing your thoughts, being outside, when it's nice.
What I love the most about it is that you could do almost anytime, anywhere. I live in Connecticut, half of the time it's either snowing or raining. That doesn't stop me. I run all year. As a matter of fact, I run shorts all year, even when it's freezing.
I love the stress relief. I love the mental challenge. I do not always love the physical challenge, but when I am able to overcome the physical challenge, it's exhilarating in a way that other things aren't. I used to do martial arts very regularly, and I was a tennis player always growing up and have played most of my life. And it reminds me of that, where it's some little thing like, oh, I made it 3 seconds further before I had to walk. Gives me such a feeling of like, I can do anything.
I love the fact that it's exercise I can do on my own. I can do it, barring safety issues. I can do it when I feel like it. It doesn't require a membership to a gym. And when my son was little, I didn't have to find a sitter. I didn't have to put him in gym daycare. I could just take him and I could go do it. And I just love, people think that runners are just glowing with energy and they can't wait to get out the door. But there's many times when you have to drag your butt out the front door. But I love the fact I have never once gone on a run and said, oh gosh, I really shouldn't have done that. I am just, that was awful. Like, why did I do that? So what I love most about running is probably just the feeling of empowerment that it gives me.
Things that I love about being a runner, man, this is the freedom. When you're outside and, long distance runs, I do Saturday mornings. A lot of during the week I work, I work 10 hours and I run after I work. But you get out there and it's just, you feel that groove. Once you get into a groove and you just go and you leave the world behind for the length of time you're out there. And sometimes, even though the rest of your body doesn't want to keep going, but you're like mentally, like, let's just go. Let's just, to leave all the stress, worries. So that's, for me, one of my biggest things I love about running.
The time to myself. That's what I love. I can just go out and either, it's kind of like driving. Ooh, maybe it's, have you ever like driven and you start leaving and you're like, well, how the hell did I get here? You don't remember any of it? It's on autopilot. But I also, obviously the first couple of miles aren't fun like that because nobody's first 1 or 2 miles or even 5 are fun. So
what I love most about being a runner is the freedom to just be in my thoughts and use the time as a moving meditation.
Oh, I love many things about running. For me, it is my absolute me time. So as, a full-time employee, a mom, a wife, a sister, etc., it's the time that I can just be with my thoughts, chill out. What I really love about running is the fact that oftentimes people go on runs to sort of think over things, mull over things. I'm actually the opposite. I run to quiet my mind, to get all of the thoughts out, because my mind, as you all know, Corey, is very much going 1,000 miles a minute, every different direction. So I love running for the stillness of the mind, to really just be at peace and sort of zone out. And that's why I really love long distance running as well, because it gives me that time to just zone out, and whether I want to mull something over or not think about something completely, it's that space to be able to do so.
What do you loathe about running?
I don't like bad weather. I do not run in bad weather. I have been called a fair weather runner many a time, and now I just kind of wear it as a badge of honor. I enjoy running. It's something, again, that is for me. So I'm not going to do it when it's not nice out. I don't like the cold. I'm not going to run when it's cold.
It's really not much I have to say what I the least about it is, but especially when you do a long run, the pain at the end. The next day you can't walk.
Well, yeah, for me, I tend to get in my head about a lot of things. I'm one of those people who, and there's no way of saying it without making it sound egotistical, but there's a number of things that come easily to me. and I'm also a very book smart, high IQ kind of person, right? So I've been able to do a lot of things. So something like running, which is not natural to me, is distance running is not natural to me. Running fast for a very short period of time is totally fine. But, distance running is not natural at all for me. And so I get frustrated because it's not something I can just easily do and be good at.
People. I like racing when it's done. And I love celebrating like with the medal and the shirt and the accomplishment. But I absolutely loathe the parts of racing where I feel like I'm going to pass out or I'm going to walk or fall over, one of the three, and just wondering in my head, can I really do this? Why did I sign up for this race? I paid money to torture myself.
So what do I loathe about being a runner? Well, to be honest, sometimes the really early mornings, especially during like the winter time.
Really?
Especially here in Ohio, where it gets extremely cold.
What I loathe, I guess, is all the equipment that you have to buy. Damn it, like you can't just can't put clothes on and just run out the door. It's not a cheap sport.
The hardest part for me is getting out the door, and I know a lot of people say that, but it really is hard to get the motivation together, to get the ambition together and muster it up and get out the door. And also for me, one of the things I have to check myself is that I'm not going to judge myself before I even get out the door. Having a specific distance in mind or pace, or those things can be good and motivated, but they can also be really discouraging.
I don't like when I have to do a run that is when I'm crunched for time. So if I know I only have a certain span of time for a run, it makes me very anxious because I know I want to get in, let's just say I don't go for time per se, pace and all of that. I'm pretty much just, do I feel like running 2 miles today? Sure, let's see what I can do. Or do I feel like running a full marathon today? Yes, let's do it. So I don't necessarily go by a strict schedule, but if I feel like I'm crunched for time and don't get in what I think I want to do for the day, then that kind of demotivates me a little bit. And I feel like I don't want to feel rushed to try to run faster to complete my 2 mile run or whatever it may be during that day.
When did you start calling yourself a runner?
I think that other people called me a runner before I called me a runner. Like, I didn't feel like a runner, especially in the very beginning when I was doing half a mile. Like, a big run for me was 1.5 miles. And of course, looking back, I know that once I put on my shoes and I headed out that door, I was a runner. But it took me a long time to accept it. I think the running community accepted me just open arms and beautifully. Granted, I made sure to surround myself with that type of runner.
Well, it became part of my life. It became part of me. Once I knew that I have to, run every other day or at least 3-4 times a week, then I knew the bug hit me.
It's weird because I never think of myself as a runner. Like, I know I am, but it's weird to even hear you say, like, call me that, because I don't think of myself that way. I'm someone who runs, not a runner. Well, I shouldn't say I don't. Occasionally I do. Usually if I'm trying to convince somebody else to suffer with me. Or if somebody else calls me that, I kind of have to stop for a minute and think, well, I guess to them maybe I am. Which is stupid, because as a musician, I would never look at somebody who's like not a professional musician and be like, well, you're not a musician because you're not a pro.
I don't have, when I started to call myself a runner, I don't have a definitive moment on that. I just think, after probably I was able, and this sounds a little silly, but after I was able to run 2 miles without stopping for walk breaks, I was like, I'm a real runner now. I can actually run 2 miles and not stop.
When did I start calling myself a runner? Well, that's a hard one to think about. Man, that's a good question, because that's tough, because you see like elites, and you see professional, people that do it, and obviously a lot better shape than myself. And you go out there and you plod your miles out. You're putting them in. But it took I'd say several years for me to actually come to the realization. And it was a friend of mine that actually, he's the one that was like, I'm like, oh, I'm just going to go out here and jog around. And at one point he's like, man, stop saying jog. You are running.
I think I started calling myself a runner once I was training for my 50K.
After my first race. And I think others may have been more generous or more welcoming about joining me or welcoming me into the running community. But for me, it took a shiny piece of metal to declare myself a runner. I don't think that I was right necessarily in saying that for me, I had to run a race to be a runner, to label myself a runner. I think you are a runner as soon as you decide to run and get out there and do your best.
I would say probably around the time, and it's interesting that I hate to couch it as distance, right? Because I truly believe like you can be a runner if you run 1 mile, or if you run a full marathon or an ultra, like whatever the distance, you are a runner. You are moving your feet forward, you are propelling yourself forward, you are a runner. But I do struggle with that. So I think that it was probably 2 to 3 years into running.
Do you remember the first time you heard someone say to you, but you don't look like a runner, or something similar? And like, what was the situation? And like, did you hide the body well? Just kidding with the last one, but go ahead.
Well, my lawyers told me not to talk about that.
I was gonna say, like, I can neither confirm nor deny.
I think for me, it was at a race. One person was trying to kind of like push me to the front where the much quicker runners are, and I am honest about my speed. I was like, no, I'm back here. And the guy like next to her goes, yeah, she doesn't look like a runner. And I was like, well, then maybe I am fast. I'm just being honest here. I want to be towards the back because I'm slow, but how do you know I'm not a fast runner?
They might say that, you're not a runner, but, I haven't had someone, tell me, straight up in my face. Because, but, you could tell. Sometimes people just assume that if you, certain category, or if you're not finished at the top, then you're not really a runner. But I always say this, a mile is a mile. Whether you finish it in 5 minutes or you finish it in 20 minutes, still a mile is a mile. And
I was training for my first marathon. I was, where was, I remember I was running on the Greenway in Manhattan. So the west side of Manhattan has this pedestrian bike path, like no cars, that goes all the way up the side of the island, right along the river. It's beautiful, a lot of parks, blah, blah, blah. And it's all flat. So that was great for me. Maybe not the wisest thing before my first race, but I was like, I just want to build up the miles. And I remember stopping to take a water break, and someone was like, oh, just chatting. And I was like, oh, I'm training for, a marathon. And they were like, a marathon? I was like, they're like, you don't look like a runner. Yeah. And I'm like,
so the first time I distinctly remember that happening was when I was leading a training group. We were training for different marathons. And so I was in charge of the 8:30, long run training pace. And so anyway, we were talking about the different races we were doing. And the woman that was leading it is this former collegiate runner. She ran on the European circuit, really, really fast, really, I guess you would say she looks like the atypical female runner. And, we were talking about different races, and I said, oh, well, I'm going to be running Boston in the spring. So this is why I'm doing the training group, so I can help others and get my miles in. She goes, oh, how did you get into Boston? And I'm like, I qualified? I thought you were a charity runner. I was like,
not to discredit, there's nothing wrong with people that run for charity, and the running community needs that.
Absolutely.
But in the
context that this was said to Danielle, I get the anger.
I won't say the words that went through my head because I know this is a family-friendly production. But let's just say there was a couple of choice words that went through my head. But what I said to her is I said, you know what? Not all runners are 5'8" and 100 pounds.
First time I heard somebody say that I don't look like a runner. That would be really early. Oh, I'm gonna put somebody on the spot here because I just thought, oh wow. All right, well,
Is it me? Is it me?
It's my wife.
Oh.
Yeah. So I love her to death. And granted, since then, that was when we were first dating, wasn't it? Yeah, when we first started dating in 2013. She had made that comment. Now, granted, by now, next year we're celebrating our 5-year anniversary, but of actually being married. And she's been my biggest supporter for everything. But it did come out. That is right from one of the first times when we met. When I had said, she's like, we were discussing hobbies and things we like to do, and I said, I run, half marathons, and was just finished doing the Cleveland Marathon in May. We met in July, and that was the thing. Oh wow.
Yeah, I've had a few people tell me, they don't use the exact words, I don't look like a runner. They just be like, oh, I didn't think you'd ever run, or I never thought I'd see you doing this, and I didn't really know how to. That's kind of like the face, like your face was like, oh, yeah, I don't know. I was taken back, and I didn't really know what to say. And, people would always come up to me prior to being a runner. They'd be like, oh, you must be a volleyball player. I'm like, yeah, I am, and I'd always wonder, what is that? What part about me makes me look like a volleyball player? And then what part of me that doesn't look like I would be a runner?
I don't remember a specific incident where somebody said to me, you don't look like a runner. But what I have experienced many times over and over, and even yesterday, in fact, was, you run? It's gutting when you get that judgment, I guess, against you that you don't look like a runner.
I've never been outwardly told you don't look like a runner. But inwardly, I have told myself that many, many times. Whether it's walking into a gym, walking onto a track, walking into a race where you're milling around before the race where all these other nicely toned, lean, tall athletes are moving toward the beginning of the start line, and I'm making my way swimming downstream toward the other end because I know that I'm not, that fast.
Now, do you find that you've heard this over the years more from runners or people who don't run?
People who don't run. How many people who don't run? I'm like, I've heard it just, friends and family, not close family. Before I was going to do my first half, it was beyond everyone that I was going to do that. And I was like, you realize I could technically just walk the whole thing and make it in the time limit.
I feel like I heard it kind of equally from both. Just because it hurts more from people who are runners because I feel like they should know better.
Honestly, I would say I hear that I don't look like a runner more from other runners. Where not people that don't run. People that don't run are usually curious about, how far I run, how I started doing it, what my pace is, or they give me all the reasons why they don't run, even though I don't ask for them.
That is an empathizing laugh. I totally get.
Really, I didn't even know.
I'm asked.
Yeah, I'm cool. Okay, whatever. But I would say, yeah, definitely, it comes more from other runners than it does from people who don't run.
I find most of these compliments, with the definite stress on the compliment part, it's kind of a mix. I would say probably 60-40. Non-runners would be the 60, but runners, I don't think the runners say it. Like I was saying at the beginning, the runners, I don't think, especially at races, I don't think they really say it with words. I think for them, it's more of a look and more of an attitude.
People who don't run. And I will say, I'll be the first to admit, it took me a long, like even your question, like when did I first accept? There are times that I'll still look at myself in the mirror and be like, oh yeah, I do run. I am a runner. Like I do have to remind myself.
Do you have to move all the medals out of the way to see the mirror if you're a runner? Just, asking.
Just asking for medals.
Asking for a friend. Sorry. Like, do you have to move the belt buckles and the medals out of the way?
I don't have any belt buckles.
Like, am I a runner? Clink, 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 clink. Like, is that what happens in Stacy's household? Like, that's gonna make it in the. I'm putting that in the film. I can guarantee that.
More often, I hear the judgment of "you run" from people who are non-runners. I've found the running community itself super supportive. I haven't experienced a lot of negativity from runners, but from non-runners, I feel that that group is likelier to say, oh, well, 10 kilometers, it's no big deal. Well, join me.
Like, does it hurt more hearing it from non-runners, or does it hurt more hearing it from runners?
I think from runners. And especially, so Twitter sometimes gets this way. If you run, which I don't understand the stigma on that, because there are literal marathon runners that's how they do it to stay healthy. So as someone who has two knees that are sketchy at best, that's being nice to them, I do run. And some days my run turns into a walk because it's really nice out and I just want to kind of stay out there. Still a run.
Say probably hearing that I don't look like a runner from other runners probably hurts more, because they should know that not everyone who runs looks a certain way. Just from their mere exposure to people and runners, they should know this. I can forgive it from somebody who doesn't run, because maybe they have an idea of what a runner is supposed to look like. Instead, the people who are runners, especially those who lead training groups and do things like that, they should know better, honestly.
Because I think it's just a hurtful thing. And it's kind of, you're always taken back, because, and some people, and I always try to give people the credit, like they don't most of the time know what they're saying, and I don't think they know that it's coming across that way.
It hurts more when someone I know not as well, more of an acquaintance, is surprised that I'm a runner.
Now, because you've heard it so much, like myself, do you find yourself, whether intentionally or unintentionally, putting yourself down when you're around other runners because you've heard it?
I have been known to clarify if it's a walk or a run when I go out. And I try to stop myself. So like if I've gone out and I said, hey, I'm going out for a run, on my stories or whatever. And if I end up walking more of it, I find this weird need to clarify that I walk. And I don't know why. There's no reason. No one really cares. I'm not that important. Obviously I am. But no one cares. I don't need to say I did 3 miles and I walked this many. I went 3 miles.
Absolutely, no question. Like, no hesitation in that answer. Absolutely. I'm working on saying shouldn't, because I know that's bad, but I know I don't need to internalize it, but I also know I still do, because I'm very sensitive. I'm one of those kind of people, you know what I mean? And I do with everything, so it's very easy to internalize. It's easier to internalize the bad stuff than the good.
I definitely found myself putting myself down. I was like, well, I'm not skinny. I have this gut from having a kid. My arms are flabby. My legs are big. look at these race photos. I look terrible in them. No wonder people don't think I look like I run fast. I look like a big fat slob, even though I know it's not true. But
so hearing it and hearing it multiple times and probably hundreds of times, do I find myself internally putting myself down? There's a really good story for that, because the one and only group that I ran with, I was all hyped up. Oh, I'm running with these people. I'm running with these people. And then I kind of slowly noticed, they have their own cliques within groups. And then one person and I did not have see eye to eye on a couple things. So that caused a fallout. Well, I'm the new guy. So I basically got shunned the whole time. So I stopped running with them. And for a while, man, it impacted my running massively. I didn't want to go out and run. I felt, what's the point? And then even when I would push myself to get out there, and I was starting to push and go back out, I go to races and I would see these people, and it would tear back into me every time. It felt like opening up a wound.
Yeah, probably internally, not vocally. I always thought like I would never, I don't know, I guess I thought I'd never vocalized it, but I guess it was all it was vocalized. I thought it was all just an internal struggle in my head. Like, wow, they've ran so many races, or not even races, like so many miles. They have so many miles on those legs, and I'm just starting.
I do notice that I will reflect negatively on myself and have that negative self-talk if I'm out on the trail and I see some other runners, maybe that I used to run with, maybe when I was in a different speed zone or mental headspace, and I don't run with them necessarily anymore because our goals are different, or our agendas are different, so I will notice myself speaking negatively and having that self-talk that says you aren't at that level anymore, or those are real runners.
So it's interesting. Yes, I absolutely, if I find myself in a pack of runners, I will definitely play the comparison game. I try not to do it. It sort of just flits in unintentionally. But again, I always come back to the whole mantra of like, run your own race, right? So you are not in it I'm not in it to win any gold medals. I am there to do my thing and to have fun and to enjoy the physical activity and the fresh air.
How do you cope with people saying it to you beyond the moment it's said? Because like my brain, the problem is someone will say something and it stays on repeat in the soundtrack in my head for like weeks. And so how do you pass that initial moment? How do you handle that?
I'm a big mindset person. So I really have been working on letting things go that don't serve me. If their negative thoughts are not going to become my negative thoughts, of course, much easier said than done. Like, be clear, I'm not great at it. I'm okay at it. Don't want to set that bar too high again.
I mean, for me, I tend to journal a lot, so I tend to sort of brain dump and vent about it there. Sometimes I'll talk to other friends who are runners, or just put it out in the sphere somewhere and be like, hey, is anybody can you commiserate with me? Sometimes I'll work out. Sometimes I'll go to a piano and just be like, let me play it away. You know what I mean? Let me sing it away. I try to choose a healthy option first and just get it out, because if I don't get it out, then I, stew on it.
how do I cope with it? Well, I try to cope with it with when I hear somebody say it. I try not to let it get in, like, as like get the ear bug going.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not always easy, and not always successful. It depends. For me, it depends how close I am to the person, or if it's just like some random stranger sort of, that I can struggle.
Well, I think what I do when I'm dealing with it, or when someone says anything like that, I think I get it out, I vent to my friends, and then, you know what, I'm like, okay, it is what it is. It's not worth my time. But I do think, even if I do say it's not worth my time, or it is what it is, there's always like a little piece that always stays back. And I think that's with anything that anybody says to you, purposely hurtful or not. I think any human is, holds on to just a little bit of that. And I try not to, and, but I mean, I'm human, so I'm sure there's a little bit of it back, but I try to just, let it go.
I'm sure that when I reflected back during the day, I did remember and think about that person saying, "You run," but I let it go as well. I have to think of that person's perspective, I guess, and maybe what they are trying to express to me, and I can just tell myself this to make myself feel good, and whether or not it's true, I won't know. But I can tell myself that that person might be surprised, because maybe they wish for it too. Maybe they haven't been out there for a run, or they've never experienced that euphoric feeling of accomplishment that you can get with a run. And I wish that for them.
Yeah, so I'm fairly adept at leaving the self-doubt behind. So it occurs, but I'm able to get past it. And one thing that I don't know if it helps or hurts other runners, is when I'm feeling that and I feel like I need some motivation for myself, I am the loudest cheerleader on the race course. I will, every single runner I see, "Good job, keep it up, go runner, you can do it, looking good." I mean, I don't know if people love it or hate it, but I just turn into a one-woman cheerleader, and it helps, number one, me get motivated, but I also hope if someone else is having a self-doubt for themselves, if that one little line of like, "Keep it up, you're looking good," will help them to push forward, because I know it has for me in other instances during races, then that is just the icing on top.
Does it hurt more or less, or the same, when someone close to you says it, or when like a random person says it?
Oh, it's definitely the people close to you. It was when I ran my first half, there was just a lot of people that didn't think it was going to happen. I don't know why. And maybe it's because I had just picked it up, and then like 10 months later I was going to run a half marathon. And I did, by the way. Thank you very much. And many more. But I just, I hope when people see something like this, and whether it's running or something else, when someone you love says they're going to do something really hard, because running a half marathon is really hard, whether you're really fast, really slow, or somewhere here, that you just lift them up a little more and say nice things. I don't care if you believe it. I don't even care if you think they can do it, or if it's crazy, or if they say they're going to start a business that sounds just insane. Tell them they're going to do great. Lift them up.
Well, definitely, if somebody it hurts more, because you would have hoped that somebody who knows you would have feel a different way. But it usually, I feel it in like, when you join the running clubs or whatever, then they only target the small, fast people, and then everybody else feels like left over. And I get that feeling, and it just it's something that you just look at it in, and you just go with your business and keep running.
I mean,
you're a random person. I don't, you know, I mean, what am I supposed to, you know what I mean? Like, that's good for you for thinking that. If it's somebody I know, then that stings a little more.
I would say it would hurt more from someone who was an acquaintance or a friend, because I just think that they should know better, or at least be more tactful. Strangers, I get it, you know, I can understand that a bit more, but I would say it hurts more when it comes from somebody who's a friend or an acquaintance when they say things like that.
Well, I mean, personally for me, hearing it from a stranger, I shrug it off, because I try to give most people the benefit of the doubt and be like, you know what, maybe they just don't. So I'm not quite as jaded yet. I know I'm getting there. The more years that I'm running, the more that I'm like, all right, you know what, you know. So no, strangers, I think I can shrug that off a little bit more. Other runners, I think that kind of sits more. And I don't think, it doesn't really, for me, I mean, I've gotten to the point where, especially, and it took a while, for the last couple of years, I've gotten to the point where I'm secure in myself of what my running ability is. You know, yeah, I'm trying to improve myself and do things, but I'm proud of where I'm at. I'm proud of, you know, I know where I sit. I know that I'm not going to be at the front. I know that. I don't care.
Or some family says it.
What advice do you have for other runners that are going to experience this compliment?
I know people who didn't even come to some of the races because they felt that, you know, they was being left behind, or even the race was being shut off at the end. So what I tell them always, people, is that run your own pace. You know, if you trying to get faster, do it on your own way, on your own pace. Don't try to, you know, compete with somebody else unless you really competing them in a race. But, you know, just be your own, because running benefits you a lot more if you don't just concentrate pace, because being fast doesn't help you health-wise. Getting the most out of it, your run, is more important than just being fast. So I always tell people, you know, do your own thing and don't worry about
I mean, honestly, I would just say know yourself enough to know how you respond to it. You know what I mean? Like, if you know you're somebody who internalizes that and is going to internalize that in a negative fashion that can affect you negatively, find a way to make it positive, you know, or find a way to either use it to motivate you or to get it out.
Okay, well, for this one, I'm going to borrow a statement made by a former First Lady, Michelle Obama. And she said, when they go low, we go high. So by that, what I mean is, you know, instead of getting angry, which is a very natural response and very understandable, instead you just tactfully point out to them why they're wrong. You know, you don't get angry, you stand your ground. But, you know, like what I said to that one lady, I'm like, well, not every runner who's fast is 5'8" and 100 pounds. You know, just simple as that. So I just think that education is probably needed. I don't think people are intentionally trying to be, pardon my language, jackasses for the most part. I just think it's ignorance. And so education is one of the ways that you combat ignorance. So that's what I try to do, is I try to keep that mantra in mind, is just go high, don't go low, don't engage at that level. So
my advice to either new runners or people that have heard this or are hearing it, take your time to look at yourself, because you are a runner no matter what.
I guess I would just try to tell people just to let it roll off your shoulders. You know, kind of just like, or invite them to a race, you know, to watch you finish to watch you cross the finish line or something. And I think that's when some of my family really, and some of my friends like really my non-running friends really got to understand is when they saw that accomplishment, you know, of my biggest race ever, is they saw it and they're like, oh wow, you know, this actually is something that she can do.
Let it go and put it on the pavement.
What advice do you have for other runners that are going through that internal compliment that they give themselves? Like, what is that advice?
Yeah, I think honestly, I sort of take a fake it till you make it approach. So give yourself the flexibility and the allowance to say positive things to yourself, right? So it's very easy, to bring the negative in. It's much harder to bring the positive in. So allow yourself to tell yourself you are a runner. Say it internally at least once a run, and eventually you will build up that grace and that acceptance to be able to call yourself a runner.
So I just want to sincerely say thank you for watching and enjoying my documentary, But You Don't Look Like a Runner. So in talking to the wonderful group of people I spoke to, there were some funny, I guess you'd call them outtakes, that were not necessarily answers to the questions I asked, but I definitely wanted to include them in the film. So we're going to run through those before we go through the credits. But once again, I want to say thank you. Much love. Everyone have a wonderful day.
We will do a run on Parkinson, and if anybody ever sees this from Woodstock, they will know the hills are terrible and great for training.
I've seen you. I knew what you're talking about because I follow you. I've seen you talk about it. Now, mind you, we can go for a run as long as you don't mind going slow.
See, we're doing that, and that's what runners do, right? We negotiate what are the terms of this run. Do you have any specific goals? No, or
you caught me. You caught me. That's good.
I totally caught you. Yeah, I do that as well, though, because when I'm going out with someone I haven't run with before, I want to make sure that I'm not going to disappoint them, that we are on the same page. Like, if you run with me, you'll notice I stop for photos because I really want to enjoy the scenery as I'm going. It's not about what shows up on my Garmin.
I love the sport.
Your first run was a group run?
It was, yes. So I just thought, I had no idea the ability of my friends as runners. I had not really started running at that point. I just thought, let's just do this together. And then they went whoosh. They were off with the races.
Do you realize how badass that is? That your first run was I would have that on a show. Like, my first run was a group run. Like, because runners will see that and they'll be like, "Whoa!" Like, they'll be like, "Don't mess with her because she is on a whole different level of badass."
No, I just didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't think to train for a 5K.
Honestly, I didn't know if I was going to finish my first New York. I was in so much pain at that point. I literally had a bag of ice taped to my knee, and I'm like hobbling through. I'm like, all right, I've made it this far. It's for charity. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm almost done. I just have to do a few more miles. But I really didn't know if I could. And I was genuinely debating, like, should I stop and have someone pick me up? And I was going through Harlem, and I will never forget this as long as I live. There was this sweet little wizened old Black lady there who was standing by a church. And I remember she was so cute and had her little gray hair, you know, and she was just standing there. Streets were open, and she saw me, and she's like, baby girl. And I kind of like blurry eyed. I'm like,
that look we all get, like,
yeah, you know, and she's like, baby girl. And I was like, kind of like hobbled over. I'm like, you know what I mean? And she grabbed my hand, you know, because I thought she was trying to do a high five. I'm like, energy, I need it. And she grabbed my hand and she looked me dead in the eye and she said, you've got this, baby girl. You are going to finish this. I started crying. I literally just sat there and started crying. And I was like, and she was like, you can do this. You've got this, baby girl. You have got this. And I just looked at her. I remember saying, I believe you. And honestly, I think if she would not have said that to me, I don't think I would have finished.
Let's see. I would say probably, when I was invited to join the Nike Bowerman Masters team, It's really, really
How
fast
did I
people.
never know about that?
Yeah, I raced with them for 2 years. I don't anymore, obviously, because of COVID and because I'm slower now, so I probably wouldn't honestly qualify. But I raced on their Masters team for 2 years. And
I've known you for like ever, and I've never known this about you. That's
well, it's
amazing.
going to be in my pictures that I send you of some proudest moments. Was when I was in top 10 in the state for the state cross country meet. I was like, for everyone over 40, I thought that was pretty cool. So
Yes, like for anyone, I don't care the age. That's pretty amazing. I mean,
yeah.
Any runner understands Nike Town, or like Oregon, like
yeah.
pre like like that's like I got invited to Buckingham Palace when I live in England. Like that. I mean that's it. That is amazing, Danielle. Wow.
I'm passionate about, and someone says, "Oh, I didn't know you're a runner. You don't seem like a runner." I don't. What does a runner seem like? I'm fun. Runners is fun. I got very sucked into it. I know it. I recognized it, and I took a step back. I mean, you can definitely see on my social media, you can see the moment I realized I'd lost myself and gotten very bought into something mentally that it wasn't good for me. And then you'll see a very long break, and then you'll see good old-fashioned Katie back. But I feel like it was a good thing. I know it sounds weird.
No, it doesn't.
But as you know, I'm a big believer in growing from bad things. Like, I just don't grow unless I have face planted real hard. Like, just I can't do it. I don't know. I don't like to grow unless I face plant real hard first.
Ditto. Oh yeah.
And then I'm like, you know what I should do? I should grow from
What was the situation they said?
Excuse me.
You need to put a mask on? Sorry, just kidding. Sorry. I'm gonna have so much editing to do with our interview. It's ridiculous. Like you're gonna be like, I'm like, so Stace, by the time I was done editing, there's like 7 minutes of video. The rest is
right.
In the sense, but that we all do that because we've heard it so much that it's just Oh yeah, that's me. I was love hating you for doing that because.
Well, did I tell you I accidentally grabbed someone's scrotum?
Okay. There's 3 quick things. One, I'm glad this is recorded. Two, no, you didn't, Stace. 3, that's you ever tell by the time I actually grabbed myself, like. So I'm attentive now.
So there was one of the obstacles that you go in. It's like the mud pit. Like it goes down, and you have to climb up on the mud wall, and then you go down and up. And well, I couldn't get my fat ass up over the last wall, and there wasn't like any like shoe digs, right? And so there's like all these people laying on their stomach, helping everybody over every wall, right? And somehow, like, I just started grabbing, and I finally got up, and then he gets down. He's like, well, thank you to anybody who just grabbed my scrotum. And I went, that was me. I apologize. I didn't feel anything. I went, oh, wait, no, I didn't mean that. Like, I just didn't know I did it.
So